We're living in the final part of the last days, undoubtedly, the final part of the final part of the last days.
This is the end of the world. This is the end of the
Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans, and welcome to episode 5 of season 3 of the Last Days live stream, the show that helps us all navigate the last of the last days. Isn't it wondrous that we've managed to survive so deep into the last days? I'm sure many of us suspected Armageddon would have come by now, but by some miracle, here we all are, still with a pulse. And I think that's worth celebrating. And in today's show, I thought we would have the theme Easter and the memorial, because both things are affecting many viewers in different ways. I thought it would be good to get your stories of whether you've been to the memorial, whether you've had pressure to go to the memorial, that sort of thing. And to help me go through all of that, it's great to welcome back to the channel and the show, Arthur Weber.
Hello, Lloyd. Hello to all of our viewers tonight, or today, this afternoon.
Whatever time it happens to be in your locality. So, Arthur, did I hear correctly that you did go to the memorial?
Yes, I did go to the memorial last Saturday.
Last Saturday. Okay, interesting. So talk us through, because you've never actually been baptized as a Jehovah's Witness, which actually puts you in a unique position where you can't technically be viewed as an apostate. And obviously, whenever you have interactions with Jehovah's Witnesses, I know you well enough to know that you would be very kind of courteous and non-confrontational. So I'm interested to know what your experience was like.
Well, it was just like any other memorial. So I went to the local Kingdom Hall, to my old congregation where I used to go to meetings 10 years ago. And it was held, at the Kingdom Hall in 2 halls. So they split the audience into 2 halls because there were many guests and invitees present. So the main hallway where the congregation usually has its meetings was not enough to seat everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And upstairs was the main auditorium where the speaker was live, and downstairs at the lower hall on the ground floor, they had the speaker on video monitors.
Okay.
It was the same congregation and all their guests.
And everything presumably proceeded in a very straightforward way. I mean, for those for any viewers who don't know what a memorial is, it's basically a ritual disregard of Jesus' instructions to eat of the memorial emblems. In other words, the bread and the wine. Whereas practically all other Christians, obey that scriptural command, because Jehovah's Witnesses believe that there is another group of Christians called the Great Crowd who are going to be living on earth. They are not supposed to eat of the bread and the wine. So what you have is this bizarre ritual where an entire room full of people, perhaps 100 or more people, have to pass a plate of bread and a glass of wine between them without actually eating or drinking of it. And if they do eat or drink of it, it's kind of a big deal, and they get counted as memorial partakers.
Yes, because thereby they are professing their hope to rule with Jesus Christ and the other of the 144,000 in heaven.
Sure. But I think, was it as of around 2007, the organization started to kind of downplay the significance?
Yeah, it was the May 1st, 2007 Watchtower, which came out shortly before the 2007 memorial.
Yeah.
And that's when they actually ditched the 1935 cutoff date for gathering the anointed.
Sure.
So
So 2007, they downplay the significance of partaking of the emblems, and then in 2012, they ditched the idea of the faithful and discreet slave as being the anointed altogether, and say,
yeah,
hey, it's the governing
exactly.
body. So,
And in 2006 there were 8,856 partakers, and in 2007 it rose to 9,105.
indeed,
Was
Jeffrey Jackson's had a few things to say about that.
and last year over
Last annual meeting. So, obviously, viewers, please give us your comments on the memorial, what it means to you. Did you attend? Did you get pressured to attend? And also, it's Easter here in Croatia. I'm living in a very Catholic country, and it's a really big deal, and everyone's wishing each other happy Easter, which I mean, I don't remember it being as big a deal in the UK. Certainly people do celebrate Easter in the UK, but I think it's definitely a bigger
in
deal
Romania
here.
is the same. Romania has an Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox majority. So, and this year, the Orthodox and the Catholics celebrated on the same date. So,
Right. Okay.
and
So
all you hear is "Christ is risen, truly He is risen." It's
indeed.
the Greek Orthodox salutation in between Easter and the Ascension.
So we have Benjamin saying, hello, Lloyd, love from Zambia. Great to have Zambia represented in the live chat. We have Once a Witness, Vernon, Jehovah's Witnesses. Thanks for clarifying what kind of witness you're talking about. Could be like a court witness, I guess. Question: did you go to the memorial in Croatia? I did consider it. I got into a conversation with some witnesses doing street work, and they handed me the invitations, and they were asking me. They gave me two invitations: one to the one in Croatian and one to the celebration in the English language. And I knew immediately that if I went to the one in the English language, I would be recognized, because the guy who kind of leads the English language group knows me. So I was seriously considering going to the English celebration, but that night I was looking after my children, and there was just no way I was gonna, arrange a babysitter to sit in a room and watch wine and bread being handed around. But if I was doing absolutely nothing that night, and I didn't feel inclined to stare at a blank wall, I might have been tempted to go to the memorial.
And the coordinator of that English language group, would he have you thrown out of the Kingdom Hall, or?
He didn't last time, but it was just very, very obvious that I wasn't welcome. So nobody spoke to me. So he did a very good job of kind of, because it was only like we were just in a back room. So the English language meeting was just kind of in a back room. So it was very easy for him to quickly circulate the word, don't speak to that guy over there, and no one did. So it was like I was literally invisible, like when you're on a Borg cube and
Yeah.
you just kind of walk through and everyone's ignoring you. So let's scroll down. Nice to see Rianne in the live chat. Haven't seen you for a while, Rianne. Lovely to see you. We have Emily here again. Hi, Emily. Few comments that I don't understand. Watching you give me thoughts of dark times, not your fault. I'm sorry that's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to achieve. I'm really trying to kind of give people positive vibes, as is Arthur. But I understand why maybe the entire subject might be a little bit triggering. Ross Brian Steen says, can you give us your experience at the memorial? Well, again, I didn't go this year. I will say this. Towards the end of my, let's say, career as a Jehovah's Witness, I was asked to give the memorial. and I ended up standing down just before I was supposed to take it, so I never actually got to give it. But it is actually breathtaking when you read through, because there's a memorial outline, and then there's also kind of notes for the speaker about what you're supposed to do, and it's this bizarre kind of choreographed thing where you have all of these kind of different people doing different roles, and you have the servers. Arthur will have seen this last weekend.
Can we show the outline during the show?
I guess it might be tricky for you to send it to me.
1 second.
Arthur's working on it. So there's an outline, and there are all these people doing different roles. Some of them are called servers, and it's their job to pass the emblems, the bread and the wine, up and down the aisles. And then, as the one who's giving the talk, it's then your job, once they've finished serving everybody in the auditorium, including any other rooms in the building, they then come to the front and sit in a line. And then you, as the one giving the talk, have to hand them the emblems along the row, even though they've literally been holding the emblems and running up and down or walking up and down the entire building with them. They then have to sit down and be served themselves, or at least that's how it was in 2009 when I was gearing up to do my memorial. Did they do that at yours, Arthur, where they all sit in the row, the servers?
Sorry, I wasn't. I was.
Okay, that's okay.
He's
busy looking for.
JW
We don't need to show the outline, I don't think. I mean, I don't really have the stomach to go through the talk. I think people who wanted to read the outline will have gone to the memorial, and people who didn't want to read it, won't have done. I just banged my elbow there. That really hurt. So let's see, what other comments do we have? AKA the heretic, shouldn't the memorial always be the same night as the Passover? Arthur, do you have an answer to that one?
Yes, I do have an answer to that, because it's one of the most frequently asked questions in the field. Why isn't Passover at the same night as the memorial? The answer is very simple. The calendars and the formula used to calculate the date for the Passover is not the same as the one for the memorial. So Passover is usually calculated using scientific astronomical data, and Passover in modern times starts on the 15th of Nisan. So it's actually a day after the supposed date of the memorial. While Jehovah's Witnesses consider the evening for Nisan 14 according to the night when the full moon would be visible in Jerusalem, the first full moon after the spring equinox. So that's the difference.
Isn't it nice when Jehovah's Witnesses use science? They don't do it all the time.
So Jehovah's Witnesses use observational data, while Judaism uses...
Selectively, we should say. Selectively, they use observational data, Okay, so I'm just taking another look at the comments. When is Singing with Arthur scheduled for? I will come back. Oh, that is harsh. You're going to come back just for Sing Along with Arthur. So the rest of the show is basically a write-off. That's how successful Sing Along with Arthur is now. People just aren't bothered by us talking about anything now, it seems. I'm sure Saffron Hammer is just joking with us, but we do have...
Sing Along with Arthur is one of the beloved segments of the Last Days live stream.
Yes, there's a lot of clamor for it, and Saffron, if it makes you feel better, It's a 9-minute whopper. This week's Sing Along with Arthur. So do not worry. There is a significant amount of the show that will be and it's an hour-long show. So at least like a sixth of the show will be Sing Along with Arthur or Sing Along with Arthur related. Crossroad Circle, nice to see you again, says this was the first year I was not invited. Interesting. And I'm also interested to know what were your feelings on not being invited? Were you relieved to not be invited? Did it kind of jar you a little bit that you weren't invited, even though you kind of would have probably said no? Because, let's face it, it's a big deal. When you're a Jehovah's Witness, the absolute bare minimum that's expected of you, if you want any kind of hope of making it through Armageddon, and this is the last day's live stream, if you want the slightest sliver of hope that you're going to make it when the fireballs start raining down, what you want is like an X on the attended memorial part of the sheet, and so not attending the memorial can be like a really huge step for many of us when it comes to actually kind of getting out of the cult. The first memorial that we skip tends to be quite a big deal, So interested
because we feel the pain. Wow, I didn't go to the memorial this year. Jehovah would unleash his rage.
You were never baptized, Arthur. You empathize though. You empathize, but
yes,
you
I do
weren't
empathize.
baptized. Yeah. AG says I was pressured to attend. I straight up lied that I was going. That's a good tactic, as well as afterwards about how I enjoyed it. Oh, okay. So this is probably someone like you had family maybe in another congregation, and you just said, "Oh yeah, I was there," So, but then how do you handle if they then cross-check with your elders and come back and say, "I know you weren't there," So I guess I can fully understand your logic there, and I hope you pulled it off. But also, are you prepared for if your family do cross-check with the elders and say, "Oh, we know that so and so was there," and the elders say actually they weren't,
Or maybe he went to a more distant congregation and
maybe
his family
maybe
doesn't know the elders there, and they don't mind to cross-check it. And
exactly. Tia Tuli says never again, and there's a laughing emoji. So clearly no hang-ups there whatsoever. Paula Thomas says Lloyd Easter has become a bigger deal in the UK over the last few years. I just feel like these holidays, maybe I'm just getting old and kind of weary of pretty much anything nowadays. Lots of things irritate me and frustrate me, but I just find I've already done a video on my thoughts on Christmas and how I literally only celebrate it for my girls. And I just feel like all of these kind of things, they're basically just gimmicks on a large scale. So Christmas, Easter, Halloween, it's all just excuses to sell stuff, and in the UK, statistically speaking, the UK is gradually becoming more and more secular. So church attendances are dropping. More and more people are openly identifying as either outright atheist or just none of the above. So if Easter is becoming a bigger thing, maybe it's just like an advertising thing, and maybe it's just, businesses and retail outlets just jumping up and down more and just trying to get people to buy into it. But for me, where I draw the line, and I've had this conversation with Jessica, my oldest, because she was asking me about Easter, and I said, sweetheart, I celebrate Christmas. At a pinch, I'll do something for Halloween, but I just don't celebrate Easter, But if you want to celebrate it, that's fine. If your class is doing like something Easter related, you please get involved. But for me, it's just an outright religious holiday. There's no kind of workaround where you can argue for it being a secular holiday. I don't think, anyway. Happy to hear other people's views. Crossroads Circle, speaking about the memorial, says my mum and grandma did it via Zoom call. Interesting. How would you do the emblems via Zoom call, though? You'd have to...
You have the emblems at home. So
have
you
your
make,
own.
Yeah. You have a glass of wine, glass of kosher red wine, and you have some unleavened bread. There is a video on jw.org where they teach you.
They
how
do
to bake.
teach you how to make unleavened bread on jw.org. I'd completely forgotten about that one. Well remembered. Susan Ogden. Hi, Susie from the UK. How did the partakers of the memorial go? Up. Strange. I could never go to another memorial. Look, the whole thing is just, for me, completely crazy. And I remember attending one or two memorials when I first moved to Croatia. This was when I was in the process of starting to wake up, because it was within a few months of moving to Croatia in August, September of 2009 that I started to wake up, because I was just unplugged from the programming. I couldn't, the language barrier meant that the indoctrination at the meeting wasn't having an effect on me anymore. But I did go to at least one or two memorials, and I just found the whole thing hilarious. I mean, it's just such a bizarre thing to have these emblems being passed around the room with the sole purpose of them not being eaten or drunk. It's such a strange thing, and I remember seeing the servers line up at the front to be served by the guy who was giving the talk, and it's all just so silly. Nice to see Sihalogul Suasperger. Hi everyone in the live chat. There's a very interesting name and even more interesting avatar, might I say. Blondie95 says, hi all, why did Jesus command the apostles to drink his blood? So why do the Jehovah's Witnesses prohibit eating, drinking, or transfusing blood? Shouldn't the apostles and all of the anointed be disfellowshipped? I mean, happy to let Arthur weigh in on this, but I think it was metaphorical, or intended as a metaphor rather than, whereas the prohibition on eating blood was very much not a non-metaphorical and literal thing. I can't hear you, Arthur. Is your mic muted?
Sorry, I was muted because I didn't want the speaker to interfere with the mic. Somehow my earphones are not working. It's a different.
That's okay.
It's not my computer. It's and that's why it's the settings are a bit well. So Jesus commanded his apostles to eat his body and drink his blood, actually in two different occasions. One was at the Lord's evening meal, and one is during it's the situation that is the biblical record in John chapter 6. And in John chapter 6, actually he was talking to a lot of Jews there, and who were gathered to listen to Jesus talk in Capernaum, where it was. And actually, Jehovah's Witnesses say that the story in John chapter 6 refers to a metaphor, as in people partaking of Jesus's body and blood by accepting his word, his example, and living in Jesus' footsteps. Whereas at the Lord's evening meal, it's about partaking of the emblems in reminder of Jesus' sinless body and blood that was poured on the cross for the salvation of mankind.
Okay.
So there are different things here.
Okay. I need to thank.
And eating blood is not something that Jesus or that Jesus forbid. It was actually a thing in Leviticus chapter 18, which was then transported over into the early Christian church.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I need to thank QCman2000 for the super chat. That's very kind. Saffron Hammer says, "Stop chastising Arthur. He does not need to be readjusted." Oh, he does need to be readjusted. I'm not going to go into it. You are not his spiritual chiropractor. So, Saffron Hammer there, leaping to your defense, it seems. But I must say, just for the record, I have nothing but respect and admiration for Arthur. He's a wonderful friend, and I would never dream of. Do you feel chastised, Arthur? Speak freely. He's gone quiet. Maybe he does feel chastised.
Well, no, I don't feel chastised. I don't feel.
Would you like to be chastised? That can be arranged. It's not really that kind of show, but if that's what the viewers want,
PG, you know.
Let's keep it. Yeah, let's observe the YouTube guidelines, shall we, for this show at least. Kingfisher222 says, "I would rather visit a watching synchronized swimming." Well, that's what I was saying before about, it being a tough call between watching a wall and going to the memorial. But Arthur, we've lost your video feed, and there's quite a lot of maybe. There he's back. Fantastic. Jeffrey Bunting says, "Do not stop chastising Arthur. You are his spiritual chiropodist." So there's some disagreement in the live chat as to whether you should be chastised or not. So I guess if you are pro me chastising Arthur, how would you like me to chastise him? Please keep your comments in line with YouTube guidelines. Amy Maria, I'd be interested on your thoughts here, Arthur. It says they do not have to have the emblems at home now. Thoughts?
I don't really. I mean,
because that's the whole point of the memorial. I don't know how you can do the memorial without the emblems in some way, shape, or form.
I think they do have the emblems at home. So I mean, it would be logical to have the emblems at home for those who attend the memorial through Zoom. Of course, those who physically go to the memorial venue, they obviously wouldn't have them at home.
Yeah. Iscorian says, by the way, during COVID, when everyone had their emblems at home, it was common to eat them afterwards, which I found weird back then, but it tasted okay with Nutella. Yeah, that's the weird thing is, so you're not allowed to eat them during the memorial itself, but afterwards they're fair game. So you have this kind of weird situation where you have booze essentially in a kingdom hall, so the potential for people to get sloshed afterwards, I was never one of those people, I might add. And sometimes the unleavened bread looked surprisingly delicious. Sometimes it would just be matzos, which doesn't look so delicious to me. I mean, I
tried matzos and I didn't like them. No,
I mean they just don't look very appetizing, do they? But if you actually do follow the recipe that was outlined on JW Broadcasting, what you end up with is
matzo does have herbs and condiments in the recipe.
Okay.
It's not just flour and
wouldn't
water.
that count as leaven though? Like, because you're contaminating.
I don't know. I really don't know that.
Yeah.
Here.
So, but yeah, there was this sister in our congregation growing up whose responsibility it was year after year to make the unleavened bread, and she always did a beautiful job of making it, and it always looked so appetizing. Whether it was just kind of me as a young kid feeling really hungry and wanting to eat everything, but whenever the plate got passed, I was like, But Crossroads Circle says, all right, was going to respond earlier, but I misplaced my phone and I have Bluetooth headphones in. So I was listening to the whole thing I felt a little left out. This is in answer to my question. I felt a little left out, but my uncle, who is an elder, and now I need to find the other comment because I starred it. An elder at the branch that I used to attend is attending to his wife in the hospital right now, so he was probably preoccupied. I did want to go, though, just for shits and giggles. I mean, if you've got nothing else to do, here's the thing. I quite like engaging with Jehovah's Witnesses and going to Kingdom Halls now and then, just so that I can get a feel for what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness now, because I feel like the organization is changing so rapidly, so many changes happening, even in just a few years since I left or stopped attending, that it's important, if I'm going to be on a professional kind of full-time basis commenting on this religion, it's important that I understand the culture and I understand what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness. So I did, in all seriousness, strongly consider going to the memorial. It's just that it just didn't work out. And again, I wasn't going to get a babysitter for something like that.
The chariot is on the move with kerosene and rockets and all that modern technology. So obviously,
I don't remember kerosene being mentioned in Ezekiel, but maybe you know better than me. Metaphorical kerosene, perhaps. The Tower says, "Good evening, Lloyd and chat. Apparently I'm awesome," or so says Anais Mimi. Thank you so much. I disagree with you, but it's lovely to have some positivity there. Mo Lester says, "Is it fair to say that the memorial is nowadays the only time when Jehovah's Witnesses actually have any chances of getting new cult members?" That's an interesting one. I feel as though so when you're on the Jehovah's Witness side and you get people coming in whose faces you don't immediately recognize, and you're automatically thinking either this is someone who's responding to one of our invitations, or more likely it's a relative of someone, or maybe a relative of a relative of a relative. You just don't know what their story is, but you do still feel a little bit excited. And when you're listening to the talk, you're kind of hoping the speaker gives like a really good talk that's going to impact on these ones so that they will want to start studying. I can remember there was one circuit overseer in particular. His name was Paul Whiteman. Some of you in the UK might know his name. And he gave really good talks. And I can remember him giving an absolute blinder of a memorial talk, which... I was thinking, okay, anyone on the fence or anyone who doesn't really know much about Jehovah's Witnesses, maybe this will be compelling for them. But realistically, what you see typically is a large spike in numbers. So it goes up to what, like 20 million,
21 million even.
21 million in attendance for the memorial. But then it always, you don't then see that number sustained
No.
in terms of the publishers. It's just
so the publishers are somewhere around 9 million, peaking at 9 million last year.
Yeah, and the growth is, I mean, there is growth, but it's extremely slow growth.
1.5.
So what you have is like 9 million, 9 million, 9 million, 21 million, 9 million, 9 million, 9 million. So and it's interesting how one thing that you can say that's positive about Jehovah's Witnesses is that they count their membership according to the average or peak publisher numbers, whereas the Mormons, they have this other way of counting, which says if you attend the temple at least once during the year, then you get counted. And as a result, their numbers are in the 20 million or so. So you could argue that Jehovah's Witnesses are actually way past Mormons in terms of their actual membership. But Mormons give the the LDS Church kind of gives artificially inflated numbers based on just unique visitors to their temples each year.
But actually, to visit an LDS temple, you have to be exemplary in the local ward or stake or branch or.
But once a year is not a big ask, is it? It's.
But still, 20 million different exemplary Mormons is
something.
Way more than the number of publishers in the JW.org organization.
That's fair. That is fair. Yeah. Kingfisher222 says, I gave this talk twice and tried to make it as less boring as possible. Mission impossible. Yeah, I mean, look, the basic gist of the talk, again, we were going to show it, but I don't think we really need to. But the basic gist of it is a good percentage of the talk is just simply explaining to the audience that they shouldn't be eating the bread and they shouldn't be drinking the wine, and here are the reasons why. It's like a good, decent percentage of the talk is just given over to that. A good memorial speaker will go into quite some detail about the kind of dramatic side, the spiritual significance of Jesus' sacrifice and the events leading up to his death, and it will really kind of put you in the scene of the gravity of it all. But even no matter how good the speaker is, and no matter how much they kind of milk the emotional element of the, let's call it, crucifixion narrative, even though they don't believe in the cross, you still are left with this incredibly tedious ritual of explaining to a room full of people that they're not allowed to eat bread and drink wine, and then giving them an opportunity to eat bread and drink wine. That's essentially what a memorial is.
And yeah, it starts with Luke 22:19, Genesis chapter 3, John 3:16, Romans 5:12, 5:19, and so on. Romans 3:23, and then 1 Corinthians.
Look, I have put enmity between you and the woman. That he will bruise you. You will bruise him in the head, and he will bruise you in the heel. I think that's the scripture they read.
It's vice versa. So
it's just the same talk.
Yeah, Genesis
year
3:16. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Amy Maria says, saw how Adventists celebrate. They make the point that Jesus was killed on Friday, slept in death because of Sabbath, and resurrected on... Oh, yeah, well, they're going to do that, aren't they? Because they're Seventh-day Adventists, and they make a big deal about the Sabbath. So I can understand why they would go to great lengths about...
But actually, the same deal about the Sabbath is also in the biblical story, because they had to get Jesus down from the cross because it wasn't allowed to keep dead bodies.
Indeed, yeah.
Over the Sabbath, it was a special Sabbath because it was Sabbath and Passover. So
yes. Well, you see, Arthur is very knowledgeable on these things. Emma Wright says, good evening from North Midlands, England. I feel like the memorial was just a huge promotional event to recruit new members, especially when they would promote the upcoming special talk at the end.
Well, I have an asterisk here, because in recent years, the special talk is 1 week before the memorial.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure of the timing with all of that, but it would make sense if they had the talk before the memorial, because then they're kind of promoting the memorial.
The memorial at the special talk, yeah.
Persuade as many people to attend as possible. But lovely that you could join us, Emma, from back home in England. The Tower didn't get an invite. Oh, you can have mine if you want. Actually, no, I threw both of mine away. But, I never got an invite to the memorial. I found an invite wedged into a park bench the following day. Okay, so clearly, well, that's not responsible though. We should put them in the recycling. You don't wedge them into park benches. Okay, this is continuing on the theme of me chastising allegedly Arthur. Maybe you don't need to chastise him, but instead give him some loving counsel. Just need to channel your former elder in you. LOL. I don't know. I mean, look at him. What am I supposed to counsel? He's got less facial hair than me. He's making some excellent points on the live stream. Main points made to stand out. So he gets a G for that. Maybe illustrations. I'm going to give you a W for illustrations, but that's not chastising. And now what he's going to do is bombard us with illustrations. So I immediately regret saying even that. So no, Arthur, you're doing a fantastic job. You get full marks from me. Saffron Hammer, Arthur's valiant defender, says, I was born on the memorial night long before the internet, and my mother always felt guilty somehow about that. That about sums it up, a life laden by guilt and motivated by fear. That's a really interesting... So basically, you were almost made to feel guilty for arriving into this universe at an inconvenient moment. You know, how dare you be born on a night when I need to be going to the memorial?
But you know, the very fact that Jehovah allowed this to happen would become a blessing for the family.
Maybe you're Jesus reincarnation. Maybe that's what that means. But I have a similar story. So my grandmother on my dad's side, who's actually she was the oldest one in my family in terms of how Jehovah's Witnesses entered into my family. And so she was essentially the first Jehovah's Witness. She's the reason why my dad ended up becoming a Jehovah's Witness, and therefore my dad ended up meeting my mother, who got baptized around the time of 1975. But she died of motor neuron disease. And she was in her 70s, and she actually died on the night of the memorial. So she actually made it to the memorial, and then went home to her care home and died. And I remember them joking at her wake, or at least one of our relatives joking, saying that it'll be really fun to kind of catch up with her in the paradise, and her saying, I died on the same night as Jesus. So yeah, interesting. But sorry that you had to deal with, you know, such silly reasons for guilt. Let's form a committee, says Healthy Habits 13. I think that's to do with chastising Arthur. Again, I can't find anything on him, and trust me, I've tried, you know. I've set private investigators on him, done all sorts, but the guy is spotless. There's nothing on him, I'm afraid, for me to counsel him on. Let's say a big thank you to Ivan Ramos for the very, very generous super chat. Hopefully this will be used for next year's memorial emblems to be passed around to the Evans household. I mean, look, if you want me to spend it on wine, I will gladly spend it on wine. But no, thanks. In all seriousness, thank you so much, Ivan. That's really kind of you to send that through. Who is ready for a very special segment that people apparently are really, really wanting to hear again? Who's ready for it? Let's, without further ado, welcome you to this week's... Hang on, let me just compose myself. This is an emotional moment for me, because I know it's going to be a good one. Please, ladies and... Hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad I have your attention. Please sit back, grab yourself some popcorn. Actually, don't eat popcorn. might come back out again. But grab some emblems, grab some wine, grab some unleavened bread, grab anything that makes you feel comfortable, and enjoy this week's installment of Sing Along with Arthur.
Hello again, dear viewers, and I'm really glad you've tuned in to watch the newest installment of Sing Along with Arthur. Luckily for me, Lloyd did not produce an episode of the last day's livestream last week, which obviously gave me twice the time to develop and produce tonight's performance. But beforehand, I have the legal duty, as outlined in recent recommendations by the Federal Communications Commission, to bring you the following short announcement. The following segment contains explicit theocratic language that some of our viewers might find triggering, offensive, or outright hilarious. Viewer discretion strongly advised. Now that we've duly paid back Caesar's things to Caesar and have him out of the way for the time being, we evidently received God's approval to dive deep into today's discussion and, of course, the much-awaited musical performance. As many of you know, on Saturday, April 12th, Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide celebrated the memorial of Jesus' death, reenacting the Lord's evening meal and reminding themselves to appreciate what God and Christ have done for us, as is the title of the talk that is being given at each location in about 240 lands. While I'm sure many of you might become annoyed when two publishers knock on your door to hand you your personal invitation, I was mostly not. You know, it was the first time since the pandemic has been over that I was contacted by the witnesses during the invitation campaign. It was not the most appropriate time of the day when they came, as I was getting ready to have a shower.
Sorry, can I just pause it there? You were getting ready to have a shower. Does that mean
Yes.
you were naked?
I wasn't naked, but I was getting...
You see, I don't spend that much time. I don't spend that much time getting ready to have a shower. I just have a shower. So you have some kind of ritual that you go through, maybe light some candles.
I mean, from the moment the thought of having a shower popping into my head.
Right. There was a process that you went through. Okay. And the process.
And in that specific moment,
right.
the doorbell rang.
Right. So they interrupted your shower taking process.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The very fact that I heard the doorbell ring was in itself surprising because I don't get unannounced visits too often. I opened the door halfway because my dress and grooming were not appropriate to go out in full view, and I noticed two sisters from my old congregation. Obviously, they didn't know my address, and they were pleasantly surprised to see me. "Oh, Arthur! Hi! You live here. Here's the invitation to the memorial. You know the drill." I thanked them and closed the door. Throughout the week, I was unsure whether I should go to the memorial in person or connect through Zoom. Yet I eventually decided to pay due respect to Jesus and the ransom by being physically present at the Kingdom Hall. And now, dear brothers and sisters, dear guests, we've come to the main part of this meeting, and we'll be observing the memorial of Christ's death. To do this, we will follow the pattern the Lord Jesus himself set for observing the memorial. And this pattern is, of course, recorded in the Bible. The Apostle Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, he penned this pattern. Let's open the Bibles with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and first we'll read verses 23 and 24.
While they do that, I just thought it was interesting, that picture behind you of That's like a typical thing that Jesus does, where they depict Jesus with his arm like that, like beckoning people. I've always found that a little bit weird. Like I don't.
Well, it's the actual artwork for
You got the actual artwork for the memorial, but yeah, I always, because that's typically how he's depicted. Is what I mean is like with one hand like that.
Come to me because
basically he's supposed to be doing this, I guess.
yeah.
Which I find a little bit creepy, but anyway.
Verses 23 and 24.
Ice cream wafers.
The unleavened bread obviously symbolizes Jesus' sinless body.
Oh. There we go. Mildly erotic, this. Okay.
Now let's read together verse 25. Red wine represents Jesus' precious blood that was poured out on behalf of many for the forgiveness of sins.
Oh, I bet you enjoyed that.
Now, I won't go into details on whether you should go to the memorial or not. Lloyd already has an excellent video about it on the channel. Nor shall I dissect whether the way Jehovah's Witnesses reenact the Lord's evening meal is biblically accurate and appropriate or not. Nevertheless, there is one important purpose of having the invitation campaign and inviting virtually everybody to attend the memorial. For indeed, there are 9 million witnesses and over 21 million people attended the memorial last year, including Bible studies, inactive ones, former Jehovah's Witnesses, and even apostates. That purpose or goal is to boost up the individual's interest for further meetings, which helps the person become more involved in the theocratic activities. And today's song is basically about that. The steps an interested person takes in order to more fully appreciate what God and Christ have done for each and everyone. The song was written 50 years ago by two Englishmen, Jeff Calvert and Max West of Typically Tropical, but you'll most probably remember the 1999 reworked version by the Dutch Eurodance group Venga Boys. Because it's April and a bit too early to go to either Barbados or Ibiza, we can be sure of one thing. We're going to the meeting.
From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
I don't wanna be worldly all my life. I wanna draw close to Jehovah. He's right side. Get to know him, his godly qualities through Bible study with the witnesses. I look at all the scriptures and I see the proof that Jesus and his faithful slave speak only truth. Gotta join a local congregation, so I'll meet you all at the Kingdom Hall. We're going to the meeting. It's happening twice a week. The elders are so loving. What their advice I seek.
Beware, beware, it's a cult, it's a cult. Beware, beware, it's a cult, it's a cult.
Think about the apostate-driven lies and dishonesties that are designed to separate us from Jehovah's organization.
I'm progressing quickly. It's so nice. I'm keen on telling others about the paradise. I've become an unbaptized publisher to share God's word in the preaching word. We're going out and serving.
beware, beware. It's a cult, it's a cult.
So these despicable apostates will vanish like smoke.
That aged well.
Next step is dedication and baptism too. Search where the need is greater. Down in Timbuktu, we're going to the meeting. It's happening twice a week. The elders are so loving. Whether advice I seek, unless I start questioning.
Oh, magnificent. Arthur, you have surpassed yourself this time. You can see a lot of attention and effort went into that. So thank you very much. And we had some really interesting comments. People were digging it. Saffron Hammer, it doesn't get better than this. Rianne said, oh my God, this is so triggering. We can't hear you, Arthur. We can't hear you.
I was so sure that it would be more triggering than anything I've done over the years.
Yeah.
That I was obliged, morally
Yes.
even, to put out that.
But to be
disclaimer
fair, you, triggering is your thing. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and
obviously.
we're all used to that by now. So yeah. Grizzly Adams says he's laughing his ass off quite vigorously, it would seem, based on the way he's written that. So Rianne says brilliant. Jamila, great to see you, Jamila. When is the album coming out? When is the album coming out, Arthur? I mean, you've got like a backlog now of
Yeah, I said it in my first episode this season, that as soon as I have the finances to produce an album, because obviously it's not cheap to do a professional recording of all these songs, because you know the first two seasons I performed 100% live during the show, which obviously did not have the quality that I'm putting the effort now in producing all the recordings beforehand, and even these are not so professional because I'm doing them myself at home with the stuff I have, but still it's a more mediocre, not that basic quality I had first time, but still they could sound better if they are produced in a professional studio.
All I would say is don't be too hard on yourself. I think people can still enjoy it, even if it's not like, you know, let's say radio quality. And also, I understand why you're doing them pre-recorded, and please do keep doing them pre-recorded if you're able to do that. But I do still sort of miss the rawness of when you used to do them kind of ad hoc.
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure. However, basically, what I'm saying is, however you wish to do them is fine by me.
Anyway, I plan re-recording those ad hoc versions as well.
Yeah.
To sound a bit better.
Okay. Movie Man 96 says, all I can say is wow. Also love all of this, Arthur, especially that disclaimer at the beginning. Jeffrey Bunting says, not only are my feet moving, but so are my bowels. Okay, I'm not quite sure how to take that. I think what that means is that he's both entertained and triggered at the same time. I think that's probably what he means. And My Life MM says it would be or should be presented at the October annual meeting 2025 by David Splain. I would love that. I somehow don't see it happening, but we can wish. We can wish. So, look, how else? I mean, how do we follow that? I don't know how we can kind of go back to an intellectual discussion on Easter or the memorial. Although I do notice there are many of you commenting now, and it's wonderful to see so many of you engaging on this subject. I think we'll kind of wrap things up there, but it has been really good to come together and just kind of do a collective debrief on the memorial and on Easter and get everyone's thoughts. The main point of doing these live streams, apart from to kind of sort of poke fun at this whole notion of us living in the last of the last days, is to kind of bring all of us together and remind us all that we're not alone.
Yeah, we're a community, and we're strongly together and supporting each other.
Exactly.
Regardless of where we are in this world, regardless of our religious background, social background, language, even.
And unlike the governing body and their minions, the governing body helpers, we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we're willing to just kind of let our hair down and have a little sing along and a little party and just try and entertain each other, which I love about this show. I'm really glad that we're doing this again, and I can't wait for more shows like this. So Arthur, once again, thank you so much for all of the care and love and effort that you put into.
And I also want to thank our viewers in the live chat and those who view us regularly, even after. So it's really,
absolutely,
it's really fun to interact with everyone.
Well, we got about it's been broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube, and we've been getting around about 80-90 viewers collectively while the show's been going on, but the show consistently gets
thousands of views,
which is wonderful. I mean, even if it only got a few hundred views when we do the show, I would still do it, because that's still a few hundred people entertained. But the fact that there are thousands of people watching this show kind of really makes me want to continue it. Again, my aim is, in an ideal world, to do a show every weekend. I wasn't able to do it last weekend. I will try to do it next weekend, but if I can't do it next weekend, I promise you I will do it the weekend after. That's the deal. So, viewers, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks again to Arthur, and I hope you all have, whatever you're doing, whether you celebrate Easter or not, I hope you all have a wonderful time together with your family and loved ones. Stay safe, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.